when we're working with activities, for us to move from activity A to activity B, we can easily do that by just creating an intent and pass whatever values we want as extras bundle, and then we can pass that value to the next activity, and then we can get that by using get intent and bundle extras and find that item that we have passed from previous activity. However, when we talk about fragments, that same concept doesn't work the same way in fragments and for activities, right? So for activities, it's easier. You just pass in the intent and you can fetch that information on the next activity, okay? Because the idea here is that fragments work together with activities, right? So fragments are usually inside of activities. Fragments can't really control the intents or the bundles or the extras that are being passed within the activity. So in order for us to communicate between activities so for this to work, we have to create an interface callback inside of our fragment, which will contain the contract methods. Remember, an interface allows us to define contract. So by creating this callbacks interface inside of then we can implement them inside of our activity, which will be able then to listen to whatever it's happening inside of our fragments. So what I mean by that is the following. Let's go to our course list fragment here, because this is where we create our list. And as you can see here, we're inflating our course list and we are getting our list, set the list adapter and everything, right? So what do we need to do here at the bottom? We are going to create an interface. I'm going to say public interface, and I'm going to call this callbacks. Okay, so we are going to create a public void called OnItemSelected, and we're going to pass a course object because that's what we need because that's the object needed to pass around. Okay, and that's it. So now that means because this is indeed an interface, if we go to our main activity here, which is controlling everything else, on our main activity here, what are we going to do? We are going to go ahead and say implements, and we're going to go ahead and implement callbacks. Now this callbacks has to be from our fragments course that build apps with Paulo and the class that we created, which is the course list fragment. Okay, that we just created at the top here. So now we have the squiggle line here, which means we have that contract, right? Because we're talking about interface. That means we have to implement the method. In this case, we're going to implement the OnItemSelected. You notice if I were to go ahead and say toast that make and then pass a get activity or application or typical context like this, and we're going to pass our activity here as the context, this, and then I say hello, and then I say toast.long.show as such. If we save this and give it a run, let's just run all of them. You notice when we click, nothing really happens, right? The reason why is because we have to go back to our course list fragment here. And what we need to do, we need to override another onList, say onList item clicked. The reason why the onList item click is available to us, you notice, is of type list fragment. That is because we are extending our class course list fragment here from our list fragment. Okay, that's very handy. So we're going to list item click. So just enter and everything is populated for us. So what happens now is the following. We have the list object, L, we have the view, and we have the position. This is very important because now I can go ahead and say toast that make text, say get activity as such, and I'm going to say, for instance, position. I'm going to add position as such. Say toast long show. Of course, I have an E. Okay. Now, each time we tap on an item, we should be able to at least see position, and it's going to give the position of the item clicked, tapped. Save this and give it a run. And look at that, 0. Look at that, 1. And let's see if that also works for our tablet. Tap 0. Look at that. It should change to 1, and this should change to 2. Now we're able to get that information that we need, right? So we know things are working. I'm going to get rid of this because we don't need it anymore. So what I'm going to do here is the following. I'm going to create a course object, okay? And I'm going to just go ahead and say courses. I'm going to invoke the get, and I'm going to pass the position here. What's happening here, I'm actually making sure that when they click, we create the object, course object. But we want to make sure that this course object is actually the one that we have clicked, right? If we clicked on the first one, which is going to be position 0, then we're going to make sure that we're getting all the information of that object that we just clicked. That's what we're doing here. And just to see if this works, I'm going to go ahead and toast again. I'm going to say this, or let's say get activity. I'm going to say name, and I'm going to go ahead and say the following. I'm going to say course dot get course name. I'm going to say toast long dot show. Save and give it a run. We should see each time we tap the course name. Okay, so that will show you exactly that we are indeed making sure that things are working. Look at that. This says first course. This should be second one. Ah, very nice. We click on the 7th one, should see 7th course. Very nice. Okay. And of course, if we were to look at also this one here, should say the same. Right? This is the phone, and this is the tablet. Okay. But our goal is not just to show the names as such. Our goal is actually to make sure to get all of these course information and pass it onto the next screen. Now, we could have done the following here. If we were on an activity, right? I'm going to comment this out. We could have said start activity, new intent, and we could have say this, and we're going to details activity dot class like this. Now we have issues here. You notice right away we have issues because it's saying, well, we can't really start an activity here because we are inside of a fragment. So clearly you can see this doesn't work. Now for order for us to make this work, remember we are working with activities and fragments, right? So the life cycle of an activity coincides with the life cycle of a fragment. So we're going to attach the life cycle of our fragment here. So there is another method that we can go ahead and override. It's called the onAttach, right? There we go. This is onAttach is a fragment type, right? So we pass in the context. So what we need to do here is, so I'm going to go ahead at the top here, create a private variable. I'm going to call this private variable of type callback. Make sure this callback is going to be from our callback. Okay, I'm going to call this activity, just like this. Now what we can do inside is I'm going to go inside of onList item clicked. I'm going to go ahead and say this, that activity, which is a callback, which means we're really referencing our callback here from our course list at the top. And I'm going to say dot on item selected. Okay, so I'm going to use this method here, which I need to pass what? A course as an object. I'm going to pass our course. So this course now, object here, which has the position of our current item that's been clicked. We're passing it on item selected. Okay. So that means now, after that is done, instead of on attach, so when we are actually attaching this view, this list, when we are actually attaching our fragment to our activity, this is where we can then say this, that activity. Remember, we're talking about this callback we created at the top here. I'm going to go ahead and say is equal to activity. So here we are instantiating our activity that we created at the top here. But you notice we need to do something else here. Let's go ahead This has to be context, right? We're passing our context. Now we have an issue here is because we need to make sure that that this is actually a callback that we created type. So we are attaching this callback type that we created at the top here, which we'll be using inside of our own list to invoke the OnItemSelected, this one here, which we need to pass a course object. So now that we have that set up, so now we have this activity callback ready for us to use. So in the next video, we are going to work more on our attach on list item click here. So that way we can actually start getting the information of our course onto our details activity and show all that information there. Okay, perfect. I'll see you in the next video.